In this video, I will demonstrate how to create custom categories for date, measure, and category data items. A custom category creates a new category data item with alphanumeric values. The base data item can be date, date time, measure, or category. Let's take a look at some simplified examples. For the date, date time example, imagine that you have values at the day level. In this case, we will have values for every day from January 1st, 1980 to the present. For our custom category, we will create a new category data value to group the facilities opened in the 80s, facilities opened in the 90s, and the remaining facilities will get grouped as the newest facilities. For the measure data item example, imagine that we have a cost measure with a range of interval values from $0 to $12.98. For our custom category, we will create a new category data value to group the values that range from 0 to less than or equal to $4.33 as cost less than or equal to $4.33. Our second category data value will be to group the value range from greater than $4.33 but less than or equal to $8.65, and we will call it cost less than or equal to $8.65. The remaining values will get grouped under the category data value cost greater than $8.65. For the category data item example, imagine that we want to change the displayed name for some of the values. Instead of the value figure, we will create a custom category where this data value is grouped as action figure. For promo, we will group this as promotional, and for stuffed animal, we will use a more generic term, plush. Let's talk about when you might create a custom category. To create data groupings on the fly to use as levels in a hierarchy. To map data between report data sources for filtering, linked selection, report or page linking. For rudimentary data cleansing, this is not to take place of a proper data quality process, but it can certainly be the quick fix to get consistent data value groupings. Or for an advanced use where you could create a custom category to serve as data values in a control object to prompt the user for a value not in your data. This is not covered in this demonstration, but see my YouTube, SAS Visual Analytics, Pick Your Metric. Let's get started with the demonstration. I will be using SAS Visual Analytics 2022.1 for the hands-on portion of this video, but the same techniques can be used in earlier releases starting with VA 7.5 and later. First, I'm going to show you how to create a custom category from a date data item. You can create a new custom category using the New Data Item menu and select Custom Category. From the New Custom Category window, you would need to select the data item that the custom category will be based on. Or we can right-click on the data item you want to be the base of the custom category. In this example, we will right-click on Facility Date Opened and select New Custom Category. Let's take a look at this new custom category user interface. Notice that there is a default name provided. Our based on data item has automatically been selected since we right-clicked on the data item. And the group by is automatically selected and grayed out to be distinct values. If the based on data item had continuous values, then interval would have been an option. Next, we will need to create our new values for our custom category. These are called value groups. Remember from the slides where I created custom category values that grouped individual dates to their decades of when the facilities were opened. So first, let's create a value group for facilities opened in the 80s. Next, I will highlight all of the individual dates where the facilities were opened in the 80s and drag the values over to the value group I just created. Next, I need to create a new value group and name it Facilities Opened in the 90s. I will select the individual facilities opened in the 90s and drag it over to the value group. For the last value group, we will use the remaining values condition and group them as newest facilities. Let's give our new custom category a name and click OK. We can see our new custom category listed here in the data pane. We can tell that it's a custom category because its icon is a little bit different from a traditional category data item brought in with the data source. We can see that I have some objects already added to my date page of my report. This is to help us look at the differences between the original data item and then looking at the custom category and how that is displayed in these objects. Let's first add it to a list table. In the first list table, you can see the original data item with the distinct count of facilities opened in that year. We can see that these add up to a total of 130 distinct facilities opened. Adding the custom category to this list table on the right-hand side, we can see how the original date data items are grouped into their custom category value groups. We can see that the total of distinct facilities opened still is 130, but we can see how those are distributed across the decades. Now let's create a hierarchy with our new custom category. From the new data item menu, I'm going to select hierarchy. Next, I'm going to move over our custom category facilities opened and the original data item that it is based on, facility date opened. I'm going to leave the automatically generated name for the hierarchy alone and click OK. Now I'm going to add the hierarchy to this crosstab. This is similar to the list table above where we can see the distribution of the original data item into its custom category value groups. But one of the nice features of the hierarchy is if you wanted to dive in to more detail, we can see the original facility date opened data item and its distribution of distinct facilities opened in that year. Finally, let's add our new custom category to a stacked bar chart. From the roles pane, we can see that I've already selected the measure facility distinct count and the by group of facility continents. For our category role, I'm going to select our new custom category. And to see the values of the segments, I'm going to use the options pane and add segment labels. Now we can easily see the distribution of how many distinct facilities have been opened in each decade across the different continents. So in this example, you have seen how to create a new custom category from a date data item and use it in a list table, a hierarchy in a crosstab object, and in a bar chart. For our second example, we will create a new custom category from a measure. We will have a slightly different user interface experience for new measure-based custom categories. Starting in LTS 2021.2 or later, you will be prompted with a new automatic Generate Groups window. Let's go ahead and take a look. Still using our Insight Toy data, we will scroll down to the measure data items and use Order Sales Cost. We will right-click on Order Sales Cost and select New Custom Category. This is the new user interface. We can see that the name is automatically generated for us, and we have an option to select the number of groups. We can select between an automatic 5, 10, or 15. For this example, we will select 5 groups. Under the More Options dropdown, we have the ability to give a value group a prefix. For this example, let's go ahead and enter Order Sales Cost and click OK. We can see that in the category data items, the Order Sales Cost intervals custom category has already been created and added for us. Let's go ahead and right-click and edit this custom category. Here we can see the auto-generated name given to it. The based on data item is our Order Sales Cost. And because this has continuous data, the group by is now intervals, but we could select distinct values if we wanted. We'll leave it as intervals. We can also see for our value group prefix that we entered, order sales cost, are numbered 1 through 5 since we selected to have 5 groups generated for us. Down at the bottom for the remaining values condition, we can see that the remaining values will be grouped as other. Let's change this. Instead of 5 value groups, let's say I want 3 value groups total. To do this, I will use the Generate Groups button, and now I can manually enter the number of groups I want. I'll enter 3, and I'll leave the value group prefix alone, and click OK. Now we have 3 value groups. However, I want to take into consideration if the data is refreshed. If the data is refreshed with values for order sales cost outside of these ranges, I would still like to only have 3 value groups. To take data refreshing into account, I will make several changes. First, I will change the lower interval of the first value group to 0. Then I will rename the value group to order sales cost less than or equal to $4.33. Next, I will update the second value group to be order sales cost less than or equal to $8.65. Next, I will use the remaining values condition and group all remaining values as order sales cost greater than $8.65. Then I will delete the third value group. Now, when the data is refreshed, I will only ever have 3 value groups for this custom category. Let's click OK. Now let's add our new custom category to some report objects. Here we can see I have the original data item order sales cost and its frequency in the data source. In this list table, I've already added frequencies to the roles. Now let's go ahead and add our custom category for order sales cost. Now we can see the distribution of rows across the different value groups, but still the total count of frequency remains the same. Now let's use a heat map to visualize the distribution of order sales cost across the different product lines. Here we can see to the left of the heat map the product line, the average order sales cost, and the frequency of which those occur. Let's go ahead and add our new custom category to the heat map and product line. And here we can see in the heat map we get a much richer understanding of the distribution of order sales cost using the custom category and its value groupings. Let's go ahead and add the custom category to this lower cross tab as columns. And again, we get even more detail about the distribution of the order sales cost across the product lines. For our last example, we will create a custom category based on a category data item to use to map data between 2 data sources. Before I create any custom categories, let's first take a look at the 2 columns I would like to map. Here we can see I have an inside toy data source, and my product line, I have 8 unique values. And for my Megacorp data source, I have 4 values for product line. I have used color to indicate how I would like the product line values to match up. We can see in yellow, I will need to decide a new custom category value for figure and action figure so they match. In this case, I will use figure as I like the more generic term to represent the data values in both data sources. We can see in green that the game values match, so no new custom category value is needed. In purple, I will need to decide a value for plush and stuffed animal. Since I'm sticking with the more generic term, I will use plush. And finally in pink, I will need a common value for promo and promotional, and I will use the full word of promotional. To summarize, for the inside toy data source, I will need to create a new custom category based on product line and have the data value group promo map to promotional. For the Megacorp data source, I will need to create a new custom category based on product line and have the data values action figure map to figure and stuffed animal match to plush. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm first going to use the inside toy data source, and then on product line, right click and select New Custom Category. I will name the first value group to Promotional, and I will drag the value Promo to this value group. Then I will select the remaining values to be shown as is, since no changes are needed for these original data item values. And I will name this new custom category Product Line Custom, and click OK. Now I must repeat similar steps for the Megacorp data source. I will activate my Megacorp data source, right-click on Product Line, and select New Custom Category. I will change the first value group to Figure and drag Action Figure to Map to Figure. I will need to create a new value group, and I will name it Plush, and I will drag Stuffed Animal to the Plush value group. For the remaining values condition, I will leave it as Show As Is, and I will name this new custom category Product Line Custom, and I will click OK. Now let's add our custom categories to the list tables to be sure the new values map correctly. For the Inside Toy data source, I will add our new custom category, Product Line Custom. I will do the same for the Megacorp data source. Excellent. Now we have a column in both data sources that we can use to map rows together. Let's define the mapping between the data sources. With either data source active, we will use the Data menu and select Map Data. And we need to enable data mapping between Megacorp and Inside Toy. For Megacorp, which is listed under our source data source, we need to pick the Product Line Custom, which is our custom category, and the same thing for our target data source, which happens to be on the side of Inside Toy. And we will select Product Line Custom. Remember, we are having to create this custom category because our underlying data values do not match for all of the categories. If your data values match, then you would just select the columns that map to each other. We can click OK. Now let's add the custom category from the data source that contains all of the values we will need to filter on. That means we will use the Product Line Custom from the Inside Toy data as the source to our button bar to filter our two lower crosstab objects. With our button bar active, I will go ahead and first I need to make sure I have the Inside Toy data source activated, and then in the category role, assign our Product Line Custom. Now I will need to define the filter action to both lower crosstab objects. Using the Actions pane, I will select both crosstab objects. Now when I make a selection in my button bar, we can see both crosstab objects are filtered, even though only the Inside Toy data source is sourcing the button bar. This is possible because we've defined a data mapping between the two data sources. In the crosstab objects, you can see I'm using the original data item product line for each of them, and they do not match. Remember, product line for Inside Toy was originally called Promo, as it's listed in the crosstab object, whereas for Megacorp, it was called Promotional. In the button bar, using the custom category, we have Promotional listed, and it's able to filter because of the data mapping we defined. If I didn't use the data mapping to define the column mapping, you can also do that from the Actions pane. Here we can see this overflow menu for crosstab Product Line 2. When I select that, it shows me I need to map data. Here, this is already done for the report level, so we don't need to add it. But if you needed to map the data for this particular control object, you can add those columns here. Let's take a look at another example where we have data values for both data sources. If I select Game, we can see Game appears in both, and so in our crosstabs we can see that worked. If I were to select only a product line from Inside Toy, such as Beach, we could see that for the Inside Toy data source, the crosstab returns rows, but nothing for the Megacorp data source. If I selected Figure, again, that was one that we chose to map. Here, figure the original product line value, where in Megacorp it was called action figure. That concludes our demonstration of building and using custom categories in reports. For more information, please refer to the SAS Visual Analytics documentation or check out one of these videos or blogs. Thank you, and check back with the Technical Insights and Expertise series for additional tips.